Okay guys, so today we're going to talk about some nitty-gritty stuff for the sleeping trailer. If you've come to the sleeping trailer series to see it finished or a lot of great progress, this probably isn't the video for you, and I don't want to waste your time in watching it. This is for the video for the person that's maybe renovating one of these trailers themselves or wanting to see kind of exactly how we're going to do it. And I'm going to talk about some of the points that we've utilized up until now and go into a little bit greater detail. So this is more of a kind of a how I'm doing it. May not be the right way, but these are the kind of suggestions or how we've done it and some lessons learned since this is the third one that I've done. So that's kind of what today's video is about. So we'd love for you to follow along. Leave us a comment and like and subscribe as we get started. So the first thing we've done is we've got this added on. In some of the previous videos I mentioned 1/4-20 bolts. I use 5/16 grade 8 hardened bolts because I've looked at the tension and how much pull they have. And remember, they're going into an I-beam that's made out of aluminum. So the aluminum's weaker than the bolt and the steel. And then there's steel where it carries under the landing gear. And then another thing that we need to think about, you see the kingpin is right here in about this line. And so an average semi truck is about 4 foot wide. And we run all of our fifth wheels to the back. So we're gonna come in here and we're gonna cut this piece of steel kind of like this. And so it'll give us this radius look, and then we'll radius this back like this to make it look kind of neat. And this will kind of mimic this right here. But this distance, this extra distance would be in a semi-trailer for weight and balance. If you're like doing over the road stuff, you have to have your rear tandem set at 34,000, your tractor set at 34,000, and your drives at 12,000. That's where you get the 80,000 pounds. Depending on how the trailer's loaded, you can move this front and back to get weight transfer to the back tandems, which also move, and to move this tandem on the trailer relative to the tractor steer. So that's kind of what that's for, but we run ours all the way to the back because of the trailers and the way we haul. And when we're going into the hurricane with these trailers, we're not really that heavy. We're only like at about 60,000. So we got 20,000 extra pounds to play with. That's full of water, full of stuff, so we're usually pretty good. So anyway, that's what that looks like. And to remind everybody, this is put in here because we've cut this door out to get the support. Now this door, you can see we have it in. And some people in some of the other videos mentioned that us putting the residential door on the sleeping trailer made it look kind of cheap. And I would agree with them. On the first trailer I did, I put a mobile home door and it looked really cheap and we had a lot of performance problems out of it. These are pretty good doors. I've tried both. This is the metal clad and I've used the composite clad. And we've had about the similar look out of both of them. This is a piece of brick mold. You know, this is the top piece, but you know, the brick mold is where if we didn't have this piece of aluminum, the door would go in there and then this would be the reveal where the brick works back to. So that's why they call it the brick mold. But it also works if you have siding, concrete board, wood siding, or whatever kind of siding you had. So we take that off and we put a piece of 2-inch aluminum. And I've toyed with the 1/4-inch aluminum and the 1/8-inch aluminum. I've done both. On this one, I went with the 1/8 inch and we buck riveted every 2 inches in between these. And then this way we could pick up the strength to get back into this rib. So we've added extra strength to this internal rib that's holding this on. And then we screwed this into the wood. So the only amount of wood that's now left over showing is just that little bit right there. And of course it was primed and we'll paint it. I've went back and forth, but I feel pretty good about using the thinner stuff. I've done both. I made me a little jig. So this is the jig that I used to make the door. So see, I've measured the angle and I made the jig, and this is the left side and this is the right side. And so, and I even did it, sleeping trailer, right trim, looking at the door. So this is the jig that I used to get those two angles right. And then I have a lot of other jigs, and just from my remembrance, I usually throw the jig kind of stuff in this area. So I have one there, there's one for arrows. That one right there does on a breaker panel or a transfer switch if you're doing your cam connections. That's the spacing you need. So I keep little jigs laying around, makes it handy. Another issue that people do that just drives me bonkers is people use silicone for everything. Well, silicone is terrible. Silicone is not UV balanced, so it won't hold up with UV rays. This is not an advertisement, and I'm not sponsored by the Quad OSI people, but this is a polyurethane. If you have your car, the black stuff that they glue the windshield in on your car is polyurethane. And so this is a polyurethane sealant, and this is what I use. So I use a clear version of this, and I use a white version of this. Obviously, the white that you see leaking out around the edges or whatnot is what I use. So this is a really good product because it'll give you the UV protection you need. It'll give you great sealing, and we don't have a lot of failure with this. I learned this trick on my coach. This is a tube of black. You can get this in white, black, and clear. And on my coach, I used the clear version because that's what they did. This stuff will stay crystal clear for like 10 years. And so when you cover up a screw or something that you're doing on the roof, if you have that clear, then if you have to go in and get it out or scrape it out, then you can drive right to the Phillips head or the screw or where you have to do. And that's what made me a believer out of it. And it stayed pliable and soft and still stuck after 10 years. So use a polyurethane. And you have to really read on here a lot to find this polyurethane, but if you use this OSI Quad brand, and they have it at Lowe's and at Home Depot. So that's when you see this white sealant and the clear, that's what I used on the door. The door is important because we cut 2 of these ribs, and in the front of the trailer, you know, they're 1 foot apart instead of 2 foot apart like on the rest of the trailer, because this is the strength of this trailer, is this sidewall. So by replacing this stretch and getting some vertical support here, remember we're gonna weld down and build the understorage boxes for the water and everything else. We'll also add the strength back, but adding this big heavy piece of steel, it helps protect this aluminum rail, and then we also put the structure back around the door. So if you're gonna cut the sidewall out and use a trailer, you've got to restore the strength of these ribs that you cut out. One of the things that I talked about was, you see how this piece of plywood comes down, and when they vacuum sealed this on the table, they made the face of this whole wall flat because they vacuum sealed the fiberglass with the closed cell foam with this piece of aluminum for the E-track. And you see how I utilize this to screw it and connect it. I just haven't done it yet, but you see I've cut this off because this piece of E-track is still under this part, and then I'm gonna cut and trim this off. So then, you know, I saved this one rib right here, and I'll reattach it because I got to thinking it'd probably be good to have the structure of this E-track on the inside. So I'm gonna put it back, and then that gives me something to screw to. So here on this side of the door, you can see how it's in and out. But when you come over to this side of the door, you can see that once we added the plywood and then we built up this piece of trim. And you'll notice that I did this out of a piece of 3/4 1/2 because I was getting the structure back into it, because, you know, part of what you have to do when you set a door like this is you have the long screws, like the 3-inch screws that go back in through the hinges, and I let them connect back into this part. And then I measured this so that a standard piece of 4-inch trim would cover this up and make this transition nice. Well, I put a door here that'll come into this front bedroom, and so that kind of is what this is getting ready for. But that's kind of a non-standard thing, but it shows you how that once that the wall system looks like it's undulating, but it really works out straight if you leave the E-track. And the way that Great Dane vacuum seals the walls, it gives you a nice flat surface to work from. Then another thing that I do is I screw the boards in on the E-track, and then I screw them up at the top, and I go back in and I pick up those same vertical ribs. So, you know, it's gonna be like the gap through the insulation to that. Because remember, these outside walls are 3 inches thick, so you have to screw in about 1 inch to get to that rib. But then what we'll do here is we'll put a piece of vertical trim to come down, and it'll cover up these holes. And then we just don't screw anything in the middle, and it makes a nice complete finish. As we move on into the design and the functionality of this sleeping trailer was designed to be a little bit different than some of the other ones that we're going to use on the Hurricanes. You know, we were going for people density, and in this trailer we're going for 4 individual bunks and 2 showers, that we're going to be able to utilize this trailer for other things, and of course on the Hurricane. But kind of going back, so now you see how we have the wall sides. We're doing the front bunk here, and then you see that we use a Vanatech. You know, you could probably use something cheaper, but I'm a real fan of this stuff for like the last 15 or 20 years since it's come out. They rate it in a home construction for it to get rained on for like a year prior to, and then people don't really do this anymore, but it's guaranteed to do a linoleum application where you don't have to put down a piece of Luan over the top of it so it stays smooth. What I did is we utilize the flat floor of the trailer, but again, if you have a reefer floor, you could just cover it up with this. And so now if I want to nail down hardwood flooring, if I want to put like a Durarock or a hard concrete board down so that I could do tile, this gives me a great substrate to do it. I use a metal screw that you can get at Home Depot or Lowe's, and it has a little tit on the screw that I don't know if you can see that, but that little tit, what it does is it's going through the wood. It cuts a bigger hole so the threads don't engage in the wood, and then they break off as they start through the aluminum or the metal, and then it self-drills itself. These boards on the walls and the side where you're going into the aluminum or you're going into the floor, that's how we secure them to the floor. And they actually hide pretty well. You can see like there's one there. And so I put them like every 2 feet and lock this down. And of course it's tongue and groove, so we tongue and groove and lock it together. I use the Vanatech floor. That gives me a great floor system to work from. We put this 1/2-inch plywood on the wall. And then in this part, I have some finished plywood that's pre-finished and varnished. So it has a finish on it, and then they have a UV varnish that finishes on it. And I'll use that, and that'll give us a nice wood pre-finished contrast. If you remember in one of the sleeping trailer videos, when I built the pantry, I built it out of that pre-finished wood. So it just gives a nice way to contrast. So we'll paint this off. A neat little story about this, I was telling Stephen, my local Lowe's didn't carry this grade. It's like a 7 or 8 ply, 1/2-inch plywood or a 12 or 13 ply. And it's sanded, finished like a birch plywood, and it's primed on the back and primed on the front, and it's sealed. And I kept going to Home Depot and Lowe's and asking them in my local area to carry it, and they wouldn't do it. So about 9 years ago, I wrote a little algorithm on an email system, and I sent them like 60 emails from 50 different accounts every day for like 3 months requesting this plywood to be put in their stores. And then the day that they finally put it in the store of the week, whenever I first noticed it, I went in and I bought the initial bundle of both the 1/2 and the 3/4, put it in my shop. And then as soon as they replaced it, I bought the next bundle. After 8 or 10 years, they still keep it in stock and other people are using it, so I have it. But I couldn't get them. I kept requesting it to the people there, and they said they would put it in, but they wouldn't. But if you'll email them a bunch of times, you might get what you want. So then as we move up here into the front, another little trick that we learned, remember this is where the reefer was, and we sealed that up, and we got an R20 or something because, you know, we kept stacking 2-inch and 1-inch and 3/4-inch foam in there till we got it out flush. One of the things that we learned was to go ahead and get the walls and everything up. So this is going to be the bunk up front in this first berth. And so what we've done, we made this 8-inch or 9-inch section on the back so that when you raise this section right here up, the mattress that would be this bunk will stand up here. This will give somewhere for it to stand and the door will open. And then whoever's standing in this front bunk has this whole entire 8-foot wide, 32, 36-inch deep area to store their bags, laundry, whatever they want to. It gives them another place to store. And then I just went ahead and lined it with a carpet. And this is a pretty handy carpet. It's an indoor-outdoor carpet. I get it at Lowe's, and it's real cheap. It's easy. I use this 3M contact adhesive. They have an 80 and a 90. I use the 90, so I just usually buy a case of it. About 1 can will do a section this big, and that allows me to go ahead and get that carpet in there. I used to would have built it and then put that in. It's just a lot easier to put that carpet down before you start building the bunk over it. This is a lot of information. Like I said, if this is a video that you're interested in, you'll appreciate these kind of details. But if you've come to just see us get finished, you know, check back in 6 months when this trailer's done. But what we do here is in this front bunk, we're out over the nose of the trailer. So the kingpin for the tractor, I think on these trailers, hooks up about 2 foot back. So the kingpin's right here. The real trailer itself doesn't start till about here. This is the part that swings under the road tractor. So we can't have any drains obviously going down under that because they would be in the way of the hitching and the connection of the trailer. We've already plumbed this in, hit 45s over, it comes out in this port right here, and then we'll carry this back and we'll connect the other shower and the other sinks. Then we'll make one penetration to go down through, and we'll pick up the gray tanks that we'll show you later that are going under the trailer. So we'll kind of make it the little port right here because this is going to be where the shower is. The sink is going to be here. The door into the bathroom is going to be where I'm standing. And we're going to use a Maciator toilet, electric. Since it's made for an RV, it's not going to sit up high. It's got a porcelain bowl, but we're going to go ahead and make a mount or a shelf like for it to be up high. So it'll be standard height, and it'll have a switch. It'll grind up all the waste and the paper and whatnot and pump it into the tank. So that'll be a little bit different than the gravity RV toilets that we've been using in the past. But we're doing that to try to get a better solution for the toilet systems that we're doing, and also because we wanted a toilet to be out over the neck of the trailer for this particular one. You've seen the sleeping trailer videos that we've done. that have the showers in them. And you'll notice that in the past we've utilized a precast or a preformed all-in-one molded fiberglass shower unit. So in the past, you could buy the molded shower units for like $250, but after COVID, they went up, got really expensive, and like Lowe's doesn't even carry them in the store, and Home Depot carried a few at $500 or $600. Well, these are a nicer finish. This is a modular shower system. You have to buy the base pan, you buy the back, and then you buy the sides, and then that way the sides are the same, whether it's 36 inches wide like this one is, or 32 or 48 or 60, you can use the same one. So we've taken this shower pan, and again, because this trailer is out over the nose and we've got the trap, we cut out here so that we didn't have to cut through the metal floor of the trailer. We put our trap under the shower drain here, so we've raised it up. And then you can see over here, I've already got it ready for the exit. And that's the shower drain after it goes through the trap, 45 and 45 back there. And it'll continue back to the other shower. And then we'll pick up the drain for the sink as well. And here we'll put the controls in a shower for the shower here, and then we'll put an access port that we can get to the shower controls through the sink if we ever had to service them. And so I went to using these because at $500, they're the same price now. Used to, these were out of our price range, but for some reason, the all-in-one molded units that I've been using, it used to be $200 or $300. Now they're $500 and $600, the same price as this. So this gives us more flexibility. Another thing that we'll do is we'll take these two drains back and we'll vent up, and then we'll vent out the sidewall. And that's how we'll get our gray water drain vents. This has sort of been a learning process. So on hurricanes, I needed a space for Stan to be independent, because he goes to bed a little bit earlier than everybody else, and he gets up earlier than everybody else to have breakfast. And then as soon as dinner's over, he can go to bed. So I kind of needed a place when there's 12 people in a bunk room or 6 people in each bunk room, need a place for Stan. So that's one reason I'm building this trailer that has 4 individual berths. And then Stan's room will go into the kitchen, which can be used in the back of this trailer or flex space or whatever we want to do. We're learning to make these things as tight as possible, taking a lot of inspiration from a semi-truck. If you've ever been in the back of a semi-truck, you know the bunk raises up and there's access under it. So it's not like this is an original idea. I'm kind of stealing it from the semi-truck world. We're going to put shelving up here, 18 inches deep. So we'll have tons of shelving. We have all the space under the bottom. We're going to come and probably put us a closet right here. And again, you could do your hanging your clothes. Your feet would be, down here in the bunk, and so you'd have plenty of room. If you walk into the room, you're going to have this area right here. Now, we've kind of got roughly laid out. This piece of foam board and this hammer kind of represents the size of this room. So you can see it's going to be kind of small. The door's going to be here, and there's enough room here for me to dress, put my shoes on, do some other things. Whatever I need to do gives me enough room and gives me a private space. One of the things we're going to do is right here as you come in the door, this bunk, this will be a wall, but this will be a bunk similar to that bunk. We're going to carve out a little bit of this space, and we're going to make a place for the guys to put their shoes under here, and we're going to have a chair that they can sit down, so when they come in, if they don't want to track up their room, they can take their shoes off and then come in there, help keep the area cleaner. Another thing I kind of got busted on, and some people had some good ideas about that dime flooring or that rubber flooring with the circles on it, which would be really good. But what I've done in the past is, because I go ahead and put down the Vanatech base, I just buy pre-finished hardwood. I already have the nailer, so I nail in pre-finished hardwood, and it finishes out. It looks nice. It's not very, there's not enough of it to be expensive. And then I put ceramic or porcelain tiles in the bathrooms, and it's been real durable. It doesn't give me any trouble. People's like flexing, moving down the road. Well, this trailer is with the Vanatech and the aluminum floor and all the supports. We've never had a problem with cracking or anything. So we'll probably do something similar on this as we move forward. So one of the things other people have looked at in some of our other sleeping trailers is my first one did have the reefer floor. And so kind of inspired by that, I raised the Vanatech up and I used the bottom for the return. In this trailer, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead, this is a full sheet of plywood sitting on the Vanatech. So you can see we got about that 4-inch gap. So we're going to go ahead and make the ceiling height in this front bunk this high. And then we're going to put a return all the way across here. We'll black it out and make it look nice. And then we're going to allow all the air to return. And we're going to just use regular mini splits because they're inexpensive, like $1,000 each. But we're going to kind of split the mini split so that the air that comes in the top is the return, and we're going to box it out. And then above this doorway or in the hall, that mini split is going to empty into that chase or a opening that blows down here, and we're going to have a vent that blows out in this one and a vent that blows out in that one. Now, we certainly don't need 2 tons of heating and air in something that's so insulated and built as tight as this is. But what we do is it allows us to have a mini split for these 2 bunks and a mini split for the back 2 bunks. And there'll be a door that goes between that plenum on the output that allows us to let one mini split do both. So it just gives us a little bit of redundancy. I know that's a little bit confusing, but as we get a little farther through, you'll see how that process works. And it allows us to do a real economical way to make these things heat and cool real nice by using mini splits, and it's quiet. All right, guys, so I appreciate you watching this video. Like I said, a little bit different. It's not sort of an overview. It's sort of more of the nitty-gritty of each aspect of what we're doing. Leave a comment if you have a suggestion or something that you've done that could improve or help us. We get a lot of great comments from you guys, and it's really helpful. So if you see something that you think can make this process better, or if you have a question about why we did something one way or the other, put it down in the comments. You know, as always, like this video. Take a minute and send it to somebody that might be interested in what we're doing. And again, we appreciate you watching.